Hello everyone. So today this is my first video. So we're going to look at the physiology of the electrical system of the heart, which is the basically the conducting system involving the SA node, AV node, the atrial intranodal fibers, the Purkinje fibers, and the basic physiology of how the conducting system works in its entirety. So this is just a basic idea. This is actually like quite a common question that comes in the medical colleges, and surprisingly it's an easy topic, but some people don't get it right because they don't understand the topic very well. So my goal today is to just give like a good understanding of the topic so that I can jump off from there, right? In no way shape or form this is going to make you prepared for a university level exam, but it will give you like a fighting chance, right? So all the people who are looking at this at the last day of their exam, tough luck, man. Okay, let's start. So as you can see on the screen, I have the characteristics of the conducting system. So every conducting system will have its own special characteristics. So here it's basically that it generates a rhythmical electrical impulse. So what does this cause basically? So this basically causes the rhythmic contractions of the heart, because obviously the electrical impulses will cause the overall contraction of the atrial and the ventricular musculature, which will essentially pump the blood. If it's not rhythmical, if it's atypical, then that can lead to a series of problems. Like when the ventricles may be pumping out more blood than they are receiving. So the heart is not able to pump as much blood as it should, causing cardiac insufficiency. So we'll come to all this in a minute after we understand the basics of this. Then it conducts the impulses rapidly. It's very important to conduct these impulses rapidly, because if there's some slowing, then it causes an arrhythmia. Arrhythmia is basically when the rhythm of the heart is getting obstructed somehow, like it's not going in the usual rhythm, right? So enables the atria to contract a sixth of a second faster than the ventricles. This is necessary because obviously the atria have to contract first, otherwise what are the ventricles going to pump? Air? Yeah, exactly. It's not going to pump anything. So yeah, atria has to contract first. Then it allows all the portions of the ventricles to contract simultaneously. So if it happens that the left side is contracted, right side is not contracting, that gives a myriad of problems. If the right ventricle is not contracting, it's going to atrophy, and that will cause a number of diseases like cor pulmonale, pulmonary hypertension, all these sorts of diseases. So if we look at the specialized structures, uh, so the specialized structures are basically going to include the SA node, the intranodal and interatrial fibers, the AV node, the Purkinje fibers. These are basically it, and the cardiac musculature. That's basically the features. So let's go into that. So SA node, where is it located? Like this is such a common question. So the location of the AV node, of the SA node, excuse me, I obviously did not have my coffee, but yeah, the SA node is located on the posterolateral wall of the right atrium, and it's located immediately below and lateral to the opening of the superior vena cava. So that's important. So the SA node connects to the various interatrial fibers and the internodal fibers, which we'll come to in a second. So what is a special property? They're self-excitatory. So what happens in the SA node? These are sinus fibers, right? So they have these cells called pacemaker cells. What they basically do is that they'll have leaky sodium channels that will continuously take in the sodium till it causes a depolarization. And since it's leaky, it's the sodium is constantly coming in. So in a normal nerve fiber of or an action potential curve, I'm assuming that everyone knows about the action potential curve, but when the sodium has to enter for depolarization, there's a lag phase where the sodium doesn't really know, do I go in, do I not go in, I don't really know. But here, due to the leaky sodium channels, there's a definite path that the sodium is going to go in, and it's going to go in much faster. So therefore, the rates of the firing of the fiber is much higher, right? So this is the pacemaker cells and special properties. Now we go into the interatrial fibers, internodal fibers. A lot of people might think this is like the new fibers that are coming through, but yeah, it's not really that difficult. Interatrial fibers is simply the fibers that are connecting to the atria on the, like, it's going from the SA node to the various atria. That's like it really. Then the the internodal fibers are basically going through to the node, right? So just in general, the atrial fibers, they'll have a velocity of around 0.3 meters per second. The anterior interatrial band, on the other hand, has a faster velocity, right? It's almost 1 meter per second. Now, the internodal fibers, there's like three types of those. So there is the middle, the anterior, and the posterior. So the internodal fibers go straight into the AV node. If people are wondering why the lights cut out, it's because, well, this is India and the lights just went off, and I don't really know. But we continue. So now we go into the, okay, so why are the internodal fibers rapid? So the internodal fibers are rapid because obviously the fibers are streamlined towards the nodes. So they're very quick, and they need to be very quick because the normal delay for atrial travel is around 0.03 seconds, right? Now we are looking at AV nodal delay. Now, why is there a delay in the AV node? First of all, where is the AV node located? So again, it's like behind the tricuspid valve, right? Again, right atrium. So AV nodal delay is basically a phenomenon that is observed near the AV node where the electrical impulses traveling through the fibers are going to slow down. Why do they slow down, you ask? So the reason is that the gap junctions are diminishing. The gap junctions are the main reason why the electrical impulses are firing very quickly. So when the gap junctions are going down, well, there's not a lot of conduction going on. Secondly, if this is the atria, there's a ventricle underneath, and there's this fibrous pericardial, the fibrous sheath that separates them, right? So this does not allow a lot of conduction to happen. So the AV node can't be supported by any eddy currents that are passing through the heart, right? So, why is it necessary? Well, obviously, the ventricles need to be a little bit slower because of the reasons that I've already given. So, what is the time delay looking like, right? So, I've made this little chart here. So, basically, what the time delay looks like is that the SA node to the uh, AV node bypassing the atria is 0.03 seconds, as stated previously. AV node has two parts. It has a fibrous part, which is going to be in the fibrous sheath, and another part that's going to go through and into the, what you call it, the ventricular septum. So the part that's going through the ventricular septum, it takes around 0.04 seconds, and the part before it, because it's fibrous, it takes 0.09 seconds. So a usual question that's asked is the time delay for the AV node and the time delay for the remaining ventricles. So SA node to AV node is 0.13 seconds, was 0.09 plus 0.04. That's the delay in the, well, the AV node, right? But the total delay, that is from SA node going through to the AV node, that is going to be around 0.13 seconds plus 0.03 seconds that was for the atria, right? So it comes around to 0.16 seconds. Now, what is Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome? Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome is pretty simple. It just has a big name. That's about it. It's pretty cool, I think. So basically what happens is that, you know how I told you about the fibrous sheath? Yeah, imagine someone poked a hole through it. So there's a separate atypical pathway that's being followed from the atria to the ventricles that's uh, kind of obstructing the natural rhythm. So that is causing the Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. So the ventricles are contracting haphazardly. The treatment is basically a radiological treatment is available, right? And the pathway can be destroyed. Purkinje fibers, basically they have a pretty high velocity actually, 1.5 to 4 meters per second. So they're very fast because they have like a lot of gap junction and they're the complete opposite of the AV node, at least in the pathway section. So it doesn't have a lot of fibrous nature. Uh, it has a lot of gap junctions, super fast, right? Now, one-way conduction through the AV bundle, we talked about this. This is basically that there's the fibrous sheath. It only allows one. You poke a hole through it, Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, right? We talked about the importance. What is the distribution of the fibers? Basically, the AV bundle is going. Then it's going to split into the left and right bundles of they're basically the Purkinje fibers. They're going to go to the apex of the heart. If you don't know what an apex is, you're going to learn in anatomy. So basically, if the heart is like this, right, the pointy section at the top, kind of like this part, that's the apex. So yeah, that's about it. So it's going to go to the apex. Then it's going to kind of go in a double spiral and it's going to crawl back into the base of the heart, which is this part. This is the apex, this is the base. The fibers come like this, right? So what's the time delay through the Purkinje fibers? Well, basically the Purkinje fibers are like really fast. So it's just 0.03 seconds really for it to go reach the ventricles. And from the ventricles to the outer side and the base of the heart, that takes another 0.03 seconds. So ideally, you're looking at another 0.06 seconds on top of whatever we have, right? Now, let's just look at the transmission through cardiac fibers. Yeah, we just talked about this. We talked about the pathway, the spiral pathway. Uh, Control of excitation, conduction in the heart. So here, basically, we're coming to an end, which is basically how does the body naturally control how it's going to control change the heart rate depending on the situation. So there's something called intrinsic excitation. So every part of the heart, since it's cardiac muscle, right? So it's self-excitatory. It can just excite itself whenever it wants to. So the reason that the SA node is going to dominate that over the AV node, which is the pace setter of the heart, or over the various ventricular musculature, which can itself contract, which we will see in a second. But the reason is that there are different rates of firing, and whoever's the most highest is the most dominant. So think of it as like a person who is coming with a huge team, like the SA node is coming with 70 to 80 people per minute. Well, it's beats per minute, but just for the analogy, the ventricle itself is coming with only 15 to 40. So who's going to win? SA node wins, easy. So, and like that, similarly, the AV node has like 40 to 60 beats per minute. So, fires per minute anyway. So, it also loses to SA node. So we covered why SA node is this important. And then basically we're going to look at ectopic pacemakers. Ectopic pacemakers basically occur when the SA node is not working anymore. If the SA node doesn't work anymore, then the SA node doesn't have 80 players anymore. It has none. So it's going to get steamrolled by everyone else. So first the AV node will take over and will make the heart beat at 40 to 60 beats per minute. And then if that also fails, then the ventricular muscles will contract by themselves at 15 to 40 beats per minute. The problem is that this has a delay. it doesn't happen immediately. There's like a little shock that the body goes through because you're used to something and suddenly you're let's say that you're doing something and someone just shocks you into doing, hey, don't do this way, do it this other way. So you take a little bit of time to understand, okay, reconfigure. Okay, so in this period, which is 5 to 20 seconds, blood flow stops. So a lot of times what can happen is that the blood is not going to go to the brain, which is very dangerous, and if prolonged it can cause death. So this is the Stokes-Adams syndrome. So it's going to stop the blood flow to the brain, and yeah, it's game over then. So this was all about the electrical system and basically the conductive system. So guys, tell me if you have any doubts. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Do it in the comment section. That would be great. Other than that, just tell me how the first video was. And honestly, this OBS stuff is exhausting. My God, I had to do so much stuff. All the respect to the people who've been doing it for this long. I thought it was easy, but it's really not that easy. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, this series is going to continue, and I'm going to keep adding the videos. And please tell me what you want to watch, and that way I can record the videos. Thank you so much.